to tape from the mountains of West Virginia.
Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us a final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. Then it's time to turn your pods up, because we're live to tape from the mountains of West Virginia. It's time once again for Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
Live to tape from the mountains of West Virginia, it's another episode of Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. Thank you for taking this journey with me. On this episode of Let's Find Out, in the United States, whether you live in the Southwest or in the forests of the Northwest, to the frontiers of Alaska and the Appalachian Mountains, even all the way down to Florida, you will hear exciting tales and folklore of creatures roaming all over the United States. Our guest brings you werewolves, dogmen, and other shapeshifters stalking North America. Let's find out what kind of shapeshifters are stalking the United States. Please welcome to Let's Find Out a new friend to our show, author Pamela K. Kinney. Pamela, my friend, welcome to Let's Find Out. I've been excited now for the last couple of months to have you on. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I was talking earlier on the pre-interview that I'm almost about 50 pages left on the book. Probably one of the best books I've read this year so far. And one of the top ones I'll recommend to the listeners to read. Your book covers a lot of very interesting stories and accounts about places where sightings of these creatures took place. And when I was growing up, werewolves were very popular in movies, documentaries, and comic books and things like that. I'm starting to believe now, especially with the help of your book, that maybe a lot of these stories in the past of werewolf sightings and encounters maybe were not really werewolves, but maybe they were dogman encounters.
Well, I probably would disagree with the dogman term. I know they call it that. Now that scientists actually have admitted that dogs are wolves. Our dogs, all of our dogs, they start up with two wolves. And I always kind of figured that. I had a Siberian Husky. Believe me, it looked exactly like that Timberwolf in my book almost. And so the short snout idea, at least they're trying to say like a bulldog. That's a short snout you can get, but we caused that from a descendant of wolves. So that's what they are. And so I like to call it wolfman. I mean, what the heck? It could be what people were seeing was what they thought was werewolves. I mean, primitive times, if you didn't know, you thought maybe the neighbor you hated was a werewolf. Maybe he did, or a witch. And in Europe, they used to burn people at the stake, not just for witchcraft, for being a werewolf. So, because witches are shapeshifters, they claim. So, yeah, I can imagine if something was seen, it's like anything else, when you're not that educated now, like today with science and everything else, you kind of think, oh, that's a werewolf. That must be somebody that changed shape somewhere.
Yeah, and I can understand with hundreds of years ago, with technology being a little different in medicine, where someone who I was used the term super religious may believe a little more on the supernatural side of these things, to where maybe some medical conditions were misunderstood to be maybe somebody was possessed by a demon, or maybe somebody was actually turning into a werewolf. What were some of those characteristics that maybe would have possibly somebody misunderstood somebody's
I know there's
condition?
a lycanthropy because there's people that actually think they are werewolves or wolves. So And that's a mental disorder. So you really don't change, just act like it. But there are people that I can't remember the name of it now. It's probably in my book, and I have to look it up. But that grow hair and are born like that and have problems. And I think that probably could be a lot of problems. Though I guess I don't know how that could be in really late medieval times, because let's be honest, a lot of them had beards and stuff. And then you got the Vikings, the berserkers, they call themselves. They actually believe they became bears or wolves when they attacked. They were violent enough. And they could wear skins. I can imagine the fur animals on them, probably the claws look scary enough to attacking, another tribe, to capture. So that's where a lot of people would think, so the werewolf maybe terms a lot of that. And actually, there were people who believed can become, because I found a thing in a book I had years ago I thought was interesting, that there are manuscripts that tell people how to become a werewolf, and they have to take a skin of a wolf, make it into a belt, wear it around them naked, and they do a chant in front of under the full moon, which is where the full moon idea probably came from. It's not that the full moon actually changes them. That's just another myth at some point. But that they used it, I guess, as part of their chant, and they believe they became a wolf or something, or having to have a skin of a wolf. There's actually in the story, I think I read somewhere of two people that owned one of cloaks, and other people found it and took them away, and they couldn't change back. So it's the same thing with the Selkie. Take away their skin. They're human. So a lot of that is probably more logically what was done. Biting people doesn't really, that's pretty modern. That's something in the movies, bite them, they become a wolf at the full moon. And so it's a mixed up lot of mythology. But I remember reading about the manuscript, and of course now years later reading it about again. And then of course, like I said, the Selkie, all these skin things, if you think about it, they use skin. So
Interesting enough, because I know you said earlier that you're not really too fond of the term dogman, of course, but maybe it's because people use that term because some of them look more like a dog to them, and they're walking on their two legs like a human. So I guess they just put those two things together and created their own word for it. So if you don't mind, because I know one of the things that also interested me about the book is you talk about a lot of the local stories in Virginia of sightings of werewolves.
there's actually here in Henrico, that's a current thing on a forum I found. In fact, it's kind of interesting to find when I got books to do this book that the famous lady with the Beast of Bray Road, I had term when I saw this, okay, we'll call it Werewolf in Henrico. It's in Henrico. It's been seen in the county, two places. And there was descriptions of wolves. Actually, one of the descriptions kind of reminded me of the Harry Potter wolf. Remember the one story where the wolf guy, he turned like a gray or white, looked more like a dog to me, but he was a wolf. And the dog guy that turned into the dog looked more like the traditional hairy wolf. That's what the other one looked like. So the description of one of the one couple. So I don't know, but I named it Werewolf from Henrico. And of course, she actually coined that term in that book. So that was so funny. And that was in my first done and only in one of my ghost books. So for the Richmond area. But yeah, that's pretty current. The rest of them are pretty bit in the past. Dismal Swamp I found, and that was 1800s. And then of course there's the one in Stone Gap and places like that. But the current one is the Werewolf from Henrico. And there's still a forum up there with people with sightings. Some people say, oh, it's Bigfoot. And other people, oh, no, it's not. It's actually a wolf or something like that. And so it's interesting.
And it is because if you were to take the classic look of a Bigfoot or Yeti or a Sasquatch or anything like that, while I understand it might be tall and hairy and walking on two legs, but they're very distinctly different from the color of their eyes to the color of the fur. And I think that also, now let me ask you this now, because I know some of them have different color eyes. Does that make a difference of what tribe they are?
We have different color eyes.
Right.
Does that make a difference? Uh, I know in the movies the werewolves always have either yellow or red eyes, so I don't know about that. But if you look at a wolf, they're more brown or sometimes blue, which is what my Siberian Husky had. And he looked pretty wolf-like. In fact, people thought we actually heard a kid across the street say, "Oh, Mom, they got a wolf in their backyard." Well, yeah, well, that's fine. He had papers, but yeah, he's probably the closest of all the dogs that literally still looks like what they look like. And to tell you the truth about the short snout looking like a dog that they believe in, my Siberian could go toe to toe with that timber wolf at our Richmond Zoo here, and it had the same length of snout. So there is no short snout unless you changed your dog over the years and make it look like a bulldog. And the descriptions they're giving doesn't look like a bulldog walking on its hind legs. I mean, that's those kind of dogs that can't breathe and they have pushed up nose. But no, these have descriptions like a wolf, and they're about same size if you really look at it. Take a look at a shepherd, look at a husky, and look at a wolf. They're the same length of snout. It's the fact that they can get up and walk, but then they can also walk on four legs too. So, I can't explain it. I haven't had any experiences. I wouldn't mind seeing one because I always liked werewolves anyway in the movies and stuff and books. But if I wanted to pose a theory with doing all the science, what science says and stuff about other dimensions and other worlds, that they do believe, like we're the third dimension. And I wouldn't be surprised if ghosts are the next dimension. There's different dimensions after us. So talking where things are in the alternate worlds, maybe there's a world that they can pass between, and maybe that's wherever they're from. And that's why you don't always find them that easily that you would in places like that. Even Bigfoot, I mean, the last time we had a ape-like creature was back in the past before man came here, which was the Native American, but we're the only continent without apes of any kind. And they look like the size, they remind me of gorillas when they stand. I've seen a 8-foot silverback in a San Diego Zoo years ago. It's pretty impressive and scary if you thought. That's the one I get scared about, thinking, well, what if I really run into Bigfoot? He's like an ape. That's pretty big, pretty strong. But
Because it's interesting you mentioned, because I know that when these sightings, the sooner somebody sees them, the sooner they disappear. It could be because maybe they ran away and so fast that nobody sees where they went, or it could be some sort of I don't know what kind of terminology you use. I would say a Stargate or some sort of
a doorway.
A doorway, right?
Doorways, the opening of stuff. And it's been written in fiction. I mean, Stephen King wrote one, where they opened up the military force until the people of town started getting flooded with all sorts of things. Almost remind you of Lovecraft stuff, some of the stuff. And Lovecraft, it's probably not any different from where these things. So who's to say? I mean, who's to say? UFOs, not they proven they had some military actually finally admitted that they had it. I remember seeing one as a kid with my mother, and she said, "What is that?" And we lived in Sacramento in our backyard, and I remember it wasn't a light. It was a big metal thing, round, red and silver. It made a sound. And that was a saucer shape. I haven't seen anybody so far that really remind me of really what that one looked like, a saucer for sure. If that's just a saucer, it was super big. It was low enough to the ground that we can see it. They didn't care. Right over us. This is the 60s. Who makes things like that? Not then. It took years later to develop different things. But it's like, we don't care if you see us. And so who's to say, did they come from outer space? Could they come from another, who's to know? Science is still learning all this stuff, and physicists are learning all this stuff. And just same thing with time travel. Physicists have different theories now I'm learning than I've seen before. So it's just interesting just to know. I mean, it'd be interesting to know. Be kind of cool, but
I mean, it would because this planet is full of surprises. It's full of mysteries that we don't even know. I think we just even scratched the surface. We're not even talking about things you can find in the bottom of the ocean because that's I don't even think we have enough time to find all these things. At
right.
least not in my lifetime, at least. Interesting. When there are sightings of dogmen or werewolves, it seems there's always a singular one that appears. Normally they don't go in packs, or they just ones that just kind of wander away from a pack, or just curious to see who this person is.
I assume I don't know. At least the ones around here that I from Virginia, none of them, even the werewolf one, has actually. At least people thought that was a Bigfoot. It's always been by itself. So I don't know. I mean, interesting that even the dogmen don't have. You don't see kind of packs in a lot of them either, which is a very wolfish or doggish thing to be in a pack. So I like I said again, if it's from another universe, different rules, I don't know. Uh, I can't explain more than that. It's just interesting that we're getting a lot of, and it's not just here. It's been for a long time all over the world, and probably even now all over the world. So I had a book seller bought the book, and she got me into Barnes and Noble. She works, I won't say with Barnes and Noble. She had an experience in Germany when they lived there. And this is near down the road, they said, from the town that was famous for, I guess, getting a werewolf and executing it or something. There's a statue there. And near the forest, which probably was that forest that they have out there. And she said one night they were sitting on the porches, and the other lady or neighbor next door, she started hearing howling. And she said, I know what a howling sounds like. And it sounded like a wolf howling. He said, there's no wolves in Germany anymore. And she turns to the other lady, says, well, I'm hearing howling. It's like a wolf. And the other lady turns and says, get in your house, lock the door. But no, just get in your house, lock the door, just learn to ignore it. It'll be fine. So she finally went in and locked it. And the next day it was, calm. That was it. But the lady lived there. I guess she was just get in your house, lock the door, don't say anything. Werewolf, because what they believed in that area. But she actually had that experience. So she told it to me. So that was interesting. So from somebody I think I could trust, literally. So.
And it's kind of fun to hear a lot of these stories because when people find out, when you write these books, when you do the podcast or you go to the conventions, you start having people walk up to you, start telling you these stories because they feel confident that you'll understand where they're coming from and won't think that they're crazy for telling you the story. No, and I'll admit to you that, I mean, I lived in Virginia for 40 plus years, and I know that Virginia has a very interesting history, at least with paranormal. And every once in a while, you'll get a story for a Bigfoot. And I believe there was a sighting of one about 5 years ago in Ashland, Virginia. I haven't really read too much into that story, but I think it's a lady leaving a gym somewhere in Ashland saw one close to the parking lot. But I was very surprised that there are or is sightings of werewolves in Virginia. When you did the research for the book and started writing, were you surprised of the amount of sightings in Virginia?
Not really, because it's a lot all over. And to tell you about the Bigfoot thing, I got to tell you an interesting thing. And it's in my Haunted Virginia Legends, Myth, and True Tales from Schiffer. I have a chapter on Bigfoot. Did you know Virginia has the oldest sightings for Bigfoot in the United States?
I was not aware of that.
A lot of Bigfoot people didn't. I went to that Virginia Bigfoot Con. I asked him a couple of years ago. He didn't know that. But I found that researching it. When you do research, you look things up. That's the oldest sightings is Virginia. So I guess they can kind of say, well, we're kind of proud, it's, okay, Washington has all these stories, but we had the oldest sighting. We were doing it way before everybody else. So yeah, it has the oldest sightings. So that's something I want to put out so people be surprised about that. But no, I probably wasn't shocked. Well, it's like anything else. There's real cougars here, supposedly. Fully there weren't. They were extinct since 1900s, right? And I said, well, by this time, animals are being pushed out of their habitats by homes being developed everywhere. And that includes cougars. I came from California originally, so they're pretty big out there, a mountain lion. And of course, they're going to travel if they're pushed out of different parts of the West. They're going to go east. And so what wasn't here once can probably repopulate. And for a while, they would say people's pictures were wildcats or bobcats. And I said, you can tell the difference between a bobcat and a mountain lion. Believe me, mountain lion, rounded ears, long, big tail, probably way bigger than a bobcat, and difference in looks and everything. And now they had went back. There's a website for that does this on there. And I went up there. This is in my haunted Virginia. They now say there's been a couple of pictures. They probably think it was a mountain lion. Yeah, well, they're coming in. I mean, they're being pushed out somewhere else, so they're going to go where they can find places to live. And there is mountains here, so if they can hide up, away from people, they'll do that. I mean, so to me, that was always a thought that, oh no, there can't be wolves here. They're reintroducing wolves everywhere. Red wolves. They're having problems getting people to accept it, but red wolves are being reintroduced because we need the predators. To be honest, there's only so much hunters can do with deer, and you don't want overpopulation. So you let the natural animal do what it's been doing, and it'll do it. So the shock that if there's werewolf sightings, no, it's been here. Like I said, the older, different stories. So there's been vampire stories here too. So we even have one in, and I know he wasn't a vampire. The Richmond vampire is famous. So it's nothing shocking. It's all over, and people have a lot of experiences all over the United States with it, and it's all over the world. So
is it then something that just as Earth goes in cycles, these populations of these creatures goes in cycles as well, where they might be, you thought extinct, but now maybe they're repopulating, and you're talking, and you're absolutely right with the building of new homes. And because I've noticed that easier, especially around here in this area where we have a lot of farms, but now a lot of these farms are being sold and they're popping up these homes everywhere left and right. You see a new gas station down the street, but every time I notice that keeps happening, you start seeing more deer crossing the highways. You start seeing more deer in people's lawns. So I guess naturally you may be able to see these wolves.
well, yeah, or Bigfoot or anything. Bears have been seen here in Virginia that are coming in. They go somewhere to sleep and they get up and they're heading into the cities. They had deers come here in downtown Richmond. One of them ran into a glass and into the building. They had another one that it was a few months ago in Chesterfield. Got in a shop, it jumped through the window, and the guy came to work. It's an auto shop. Had to try to get the horns of the deer to get him out the door, right? And so, yeah, they've been here before people. So I've seen people complain, oh, those buzzards, they're pooping all over our area, our new subdivision. Well, those buzzards were probably there before they came along, probably landing there looking for prey,
Yeah, you're in their neighborhood. You landed in their neighborhood. They're not in your neighborhood. So, it's sad in a way, but I guess just things go on like that, whether we like it or not. But
so if we're seeing Bigfoot and werewolves and around here, it's not surprising. I mean, if you think anything else, everything else is getting pushed out. So
no, of course, that would definitely happen. And I'll touch on something we talked about earlier as well, because I know we're talking about the book that's performing very well because it came out last year, correct?
right, well, it came out in August 2022. I mean April
And
2022. Sorry.
no, that's okay, because also not only did you write the book, but you're also involved in other projects as well. And I was going to save it towards the end of the program, but let's talk about this with your DVD series, Paranormal World Seekers. And speaking of Virginia and its rich history with the paranormal, but what are these DVDs covering? Because I know that some of them cover where spirits in haunted hotels, bed and breakfast, grocery store, bookstores, you name it, that there's some
We did
activities in
ghost.
these locations.
We did, of course, the books are to share book people. Last year we actually were allowed earlier, so we could. When I do a signing every year at Rosewood Plantation, Gloucester. It's a ruins from the 1700s. It burned down in the 60s, and it is haunted. That's all I'm going to say. Back then, we couldn't make a DVD for that one though because of the rules that they have. It may have changed. There's another group in charge of it now, archaeologists, so of all of them in the area. But so we're waiting to see if they say they want us to help people to learn how to investigate. But it does have. Yeah, we investigated there at night. We were allowed to 10 o'clock, and my ghost box, I got the woman Beth I got a couple of years ago, and she came back on. And then we had other voices. They said they were the house men. We had a child. And funny thing is, one of our the husband of one of our investigator, Carol Smith, he was running back to go get to use the bathroom at the visitor center because there's no bathroom literally at the woods. And I mean, with ruins. And he heard footsteps behind him, and he stopped. He said, and it stopped, and then he ran on again, and they ran on. So finally, he ran all the way back to the visitor center. And he's going, "I heard footsteps behind me." To the lady, I heard footsteps to the docent. She goes, "Oh, that's the ghost of the boy that likes to do that. He likes to tease people. He likes to run behind them or follow behind them on the road." So when he came back, he was excited to tell us. I thought, oh my gosh, her husband's a skeptic. No matter what happens, either he's asleep. He was asleep during an investigation we had, or whatever else. So I said, Carol, I said, now you will feel vindicated. You can now talk about it without him thinking you're crazy, right? The next day, he turns around and tells her, baby, I imagined it. So I told her, I said, I bet you he's just unnerved to actually hear these footsteps, and there was nobody there because we were at the Rosewell. The lady was back at the visitor center, so who was behind him on the road? So, but she said that's what a ghost of a boy likes to do. There's also a ghost of a girl too. So, but it was interesting to have them do that. But we've had that sort of stuff and stuff. The only thing about the bookstore, I will tell you, they'll have to get them the DVD because we always give one of them the DVD. We went there and got a lot of weird stuff on our own cameras. This whole thing, like there's cameras, one of our pictures started doing that weird thing. And then it quit, and then the light would light up. Now, if it lights up and there's a person there, it will show the person because it's security cameras. But there were several times it lit up, went away. There was nobody there. So we had all that, and we told Mark, the videographer, that Bill said my husband said he would get the stuff to him, and he'll download it on a thing. Well, it says it's there, but it says it's not there. So all I can think of is it's the grouchy guy. We had two people. We had a kid, and we had this guy. The first thing when I opened up my box, he came out of, I didn't have to say anything. Get out of here. Loud and perfect.
Wow.
I said, what did you say? Get out of here. I says, but we can't. This is a bookstore and we're investigating for this. And then I shut off and I told him that. Then when we were filming, and he's got it on camera, he said something real low. I said, did you call me a bitch? He got louder, bitch. And he got louder with that. And I said, well, that sounds like you have problems when you were alive. I said, I mean, why would you be angry? I mean, you're in a bookstore. It's got lots of cool books. And he kept saying that word. But he ended up giving up, which is funny. And I think that was him on the camera, because they now said that when I went back to do a reading of my new book, the guy says, we haven't heard from him since. So I must have freaked him out that he couldn't take me on. I learned not to flap in it, because I had a guy today at the event says, oh, it's about demons. I said, really? I said, my co-producer, Mark, told me he does this for a living with movies. And when you're doing these ghost shows, some of them, they want to do that on purpose to scare people. I mean, if you sat in some investigations, they can be downright boring. And so nobody wants to watch boring. They want what they see on the TV, which the movies, which is, movies. And so they do that. And I said, I've never really countered, at least investigating a demon. I said, mostly I think the ones I had that were not nice, I think there were three. It was that they're probably just they were regular old people. I'm pretty sure they had issues. I said, people, when they die, I'm learning, they don't change their spots, like they say. I guess they just stay in here. Maybe they're afraid to go to hell. I don't know, but they don't change their spots, so they're all grouchy the way they are. I said, if it was a demon, it wouldn't give up that easy. I don't think that would be the case. So,
And how many of those DVDs are out so far?
I think there's 5 or 6. We've did them slowly, and there's some that we'll do for people and investigate anyway. At least Karen and I do. It's hard for him. He has to have professional videographer business, so he has to make money with that to keep it up. But when we do it, we might be doing Center Hill next. I don't know. They came by and someone's asked us today, have you ever done Center Hill? Well, I did the book, but that was it. So she said she knows. So we'll see. She's got my card and with my email on it. That's for regular people and booksellers. So we'll see what happens. I said, hey, I have a videographer. It's what he does with the camcorder. So, and we would give him a DVD. So it's not like we're not giving it to you, But yeah, he's gotten stuff on his camera. You'd be surprised. I would always wonder about the ghost shows. If they really are on some of these really deep things, what do the cameras get? Not those ones talking. There's person's got to be behind them with the big thing to have that. There's got to be stuff on their camera because he's caught at Fort Magruder Hotel. I'm talking with the ghost box and Carol's with me. And in the middle of it, he sent me the capture. Green mist rising out where the ghost box is. And another one, it was a really long one. The place is now closed. They turned that into a roundabout. In his house, he couldn't save it because his family had put something on the top floor, and that wasn't historically accurate. So that was his problem with that. So and VDOT decided to take it eminent domain to turn it. So eventually they gave him money for a place he got. But we were stopped filming because Mark had his battery drain there, just like at Fort Magruder. And he went outdoors. He has stuff in his Jeep. And Bill, my husband, was outdoors. We had at that time another couple, and he was outside, the guy. Carol was with me in the kitchen. And that other girl, Julia, decided to go upstairs because that's where the bathroom was. That's where they built it. And she was ready, the light was on in the stairs. You had that. They're steep and not the well-built stairs. They shut the light off on her. Okay, we heard her scream because we went in there and she was hanging on for dear life and says, they didn't want me to, I wanted to go to the bathroom. I only wanted to go to the bathroom. And I dumbly said, oh, I guess they don't want you to go to the bathroom. A little sarcastic. Later on, Mark calls me and he says, oh my gosh, you can hear the audible click of the light switch. And he said, you can see she's over here. She would have to reach way over there in front of the only camera working was this camera I had, a little one, to touch that light switch. She didn't. Just hear the click, the darkness, and her complete wild scream. So, and he heard that on his camera, so it was on there. So they do capture, that's I always wonder about that stuff.
Wow, I mean that's an amazing stories. We could be found in your DVDs as well. And with you're a very busy person with your book signings, doing the events, of course, the DVDs, your paranormal investigating. Where can the listeners of Let's find out more about your projects and where you're going to be next?
Well, my website, that's Pamela K. Kinney, PamelaKKINNEY.com. Next, I'll be actually doing a book signing in 2 weeks in Williamsburg at Turn the Page bookstore. So I'll be doing the kids' book actually, because I already did other ones earlier. So I'll be there on December 17th from noon to 4. If anybody wants to be down there, I'll have the Christmas magic, which is fairies and Christmas. And actually, I found out the illustrator I hired, she's from Richmond, so I got to meet her. So she was excited about the book too. So, and she does a lot of the Krampus and vampire artwork and stuff. So that's her normal forte. So Christmas was a little different for her. But and then next year I'll be in MarsCon in January, and I'll be at the Hanover Tavern Paracon the following weekend in January too. As long as none of that snows, that's the whole thing now. You don't know that's January, but last year I think that's what happened to the Hanover Tavern last year. But it's a really cool thing because it's a tavern. It's been there since 1700s, so and it's haunted. So.
No, and I look forward to having you come back and tell us some of these stories about the hauntings. And if you get any more werewolves sightings and stories, please come back on the show and share it with the listeners.
Sure, I would be glad to.
And I'll do this one last part to where I highly recommend your book to the listeners. There's a lot of great stories out there from in historical and documents that you've also put in there that we didn't talk about because we don't want to give away too much in the book. So I'm very happy that I read the book, and I'm very happy that you wrote it. And I look forward to having you back on in 2024.
I would be glad to come.
Thank you, my friend. This has been another excellent episode of Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. Please check us out on all our social media pages as well as our YouTube, and we're also on Rumble. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, our merch is live and ready to rock. Please visit the Facebook page for more information on how to order the shirts and caps. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, my friends.
Thank you for listening to Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Pocket Casts, and on Anchor. For more information about Let's Find Out with co-host Diego, please visit us on Facebook.com/co-host Diego, on Twitter at co-host_Diego, and on Instagram as co-host Diego. Copyright co-host Diego. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of co-host Diego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, co-host Diego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.
Moonlight Monster Media presents the Steeds Ridge DVDs, Steeds Ridge posters, stickers, Moonlight Monster Media mugs, and Moonlight Monster Media t-shirts.